Hey, hi, a very good afternoon. For those of you who've joined in early, the webinar is about to begin in a few minutes. Before I get started, let's quickly go on and perform a quick audio and video check. If you guys can hear me loud and clear, just make use of the chat window to let me know the same. You can just say great on the chat so that I can, understand that the audio and video is absolutely fine. A quick confirmation on the audio and video, guys. For those of you who've joined early, thank you so much. A quick AV test before we get started. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Thank you so much for the confirmation, guys. We are all set and good to go. Once again, a very good afternoon to you all. Thank you for having taken the time to have joined me in today's webinar. This is Jay, a solutions expert from the Active Directory Solutions suite here at ManageEngine. So first things first, before we get started, for those of you who want a copy of today's webinar, it's going to be pretty simple. All you have to do is towards the end of the webinar, just drop me a message with your email ID and I'll have the video sent over. For those of you who have questions coming up during the course of webinar, feel free to shoot as many number of questions as you want. I try and take as many as possible. Just in case if I miss out on one or two, no worries. I'll have them answered towards the end because we'll have a dedicated Q&A session towards the end. So all ground rules set. Now, welcome to the session on real-time Active Directory based password synchronization. So why did we pick password synchronization? Or so to say, what is the importance of Active Directory passwords being synced across platforms? Organizations are moving at a rapid pace and they are adopting cloud applications day in, day out. The adoption, as per statistics, has increased at a rate of 38% since 2017 to 2018 in comparison. And on an average, organizations, have started to be more inclined towards cloud applications. It could be your Office 365, it could be your Salesforce, your G Suite, you name it, the applications are going on the cloud and more identities get provisioned day in day out. Active Directory administrators was the only big role that an IT admin used to play when it came to identity and access management. But then now, it's not just AD where you need accounts. You need accounts in Active Directory, you need Office 365 licenses assigned, you need an Exchange mailbox created, a Skype for Business account, so on and so forth. The list goes on and on. So, what's the challenge that the IT is going to face? It's not just on the operational level, but then now that IT is going to be constantly dealing with the end users, there comes the problem. The end users have 10 identities, let's say, so they'll need to remember 10 different passwords. And here comes the problem. On an average of 100 help desk calls that the IT help desk receives, 35 of them are password reset calls. So given the fact that we already have so much to do, help desk can actually do a lot better by not taking help desk calls, instead focus on what's more important, not password reset calls, but then focus on something that's a lot more important. So what we've done is we've put together a solution that can let your end users synchronize their passwords. So all that they'll need to do is not come up with ideas like this one, but instead go on and have one strong, secure password for their Active Directory, which is absolutely going to be based on the password policy that you configure. And mind me when I say password policy, this is not just going to be your Active Directory password policy, but then it's going to be a password policy that's a lot more fine-grained, a lot more stronger, with a higher entropy done through the product. So that is the idea behind the session. We're going to help our end users not remember much, but just remember one proper strong Active Directory password that's going to be synchronized across different cloud applications that you get provision for them. So what are the challenges that the administrators face? Managing non-synchronized accounts across applications. So identities form the epicenter of your entire IT infrastructure. For identities, the first step is authentication and authorization. If these identities are haywire, if the same person has different nomenclature, or if the same user has different nomenclature and identities across different platforms, managing them is not just going to be tedious, but then at times could be, a cause of a possible security vulnerability. We wouldn't want such things to happen. We'd want all of this to be streamlined, which is the idea behind today's session. When it comes to service level agreements associated with the IT help desk handling password reset tickets. Again, if you have a critical account that's locked out in the middle of the night, they can't go ahead and call IT, but then they still do that all the time, don't they? It's the IT who gets constantly bombarded with calls, with midnight requests for password resets or account unlocks. It is what it is. But then, what if we have a self-service in place? Now that we are talking so much about self-service, a quick trivia. Are we new to the concept of self-service? I'm going to give you some time to think. Time's up. So the answer is no. For long, we've been so accustomed to self-service. Why would I say that? Be it Facebook, be it Google, be it Yahoo, you don't or we don't really call up them if we forget our username or password, do we? We just use a simple forgot password link. We go on, answer a few security questions, get the two-factor authentication or some multi-factor authentication that's there. It could be your security code, it could be an email, or it could be a text notification with an one-time password, and we get going or self-serving ourselves with a password change or a password reset. So the idea of self-service is not something that we are new to. So that being said, it gives us a great advantage right here. So when the product is implemented, we essentially need not go on and educate our users to work with the product or with the tool, the end users, I mean. So additional infrastructure requirement is no longer going to be a problem. You need not have more time or more resource dedicated or allocated to take up password calls or password synchronization problems. So all that is going to be handled, and inconsistencies are no longer going to be a pain. So all this being said and done, we'll now move on to what's the agenda of today's session. We are taking up Salesforce password synchronization as the central topic, but then, as a matter of fact, the AD self-service product that we are talking about supports 100 plus cloud applications for password single sign-on and close to 15 plus major vendors on the password synchronization, Active Directory password synchronization. We've also kind of opened up our API. I'm gonna show you or walk you through that bit as well. All right. So what we'll be doing is we'll start off with Salesforce. We'll understand as to how Salesforce administrators can set up the synchronization so that identities on Salesforce have the same password as that of Active Directory. And when changes are made to end user passwords on Active Directory, they are going to be synchronized with their identities on Salesforce. So we'll set that up. We'll go forward to understand how the password policies in ADSelfService Plus are going to help you make your Salesforce or other cloud application passwords a lot more secure, going beyond the Microsoft Active Directory password policy. It's been around for quite a long time, almost 18 years, and not much of it has changed, or to be absolutely honest, it's not changed at all. It's still the same. You're not believing me? Let me quickly open that up for you. So let me quickly do a secpol security policy dot. All right, I pulled it up. Got it. So getting into the accounts policy and getting into the passwords policy, this is all that it can do. Talking about length, talking about age, talking about history, and that's pretty much it. So when we want passwords, or most of us do know, right? Hoping auditors have not joined in today, we can be absolutely honest. So Passwords, be it new users being provisioned in your Active Directory, or so to say, service accounts at times end up having not so complex passwords, or end up having passwords that never really expire. Attributes of that sort go unnoticed. So the idea is to handpick all those, or pinpoint all those problems today, all password related problems today, and also get them solved. So the agenda is going to be an holistic approach towards password management and password synchronization. So providing a simple, secure, and consistent password across platforms, that's something we'll be discussing. And yes, like I told you, no longer help desk calls. You're not going to receive more calls on password resets. Once you're done with the session, go on, try implementing the product. And this password expiry notification, which is absolutely free for lifetime. I'll be sharing the link for that specific tool. You can install, remind your end users if they forget their passwords. Not just a pop-up, but then consistent email, push, and text notifications, just so that they just can't miss a password, reset or change as per your policy. Yes. All right. So real-time password synchronization. What are we going to do? We're going to let the end users take less effort. It's going to be automatic. Passwords and account management are going to be simple. I'm going to also give you a sneak peek on something that we are working on our AD labs. We are working on identity management as well. In addition to password synchronization, we will be bringing in features from the identity management side of things. We're going to get ahead and pull in a few Active Directory user creation, deprovisioning, file server permission management, password reset, account unlock, enable, disable user functionalities into your Salesforce console. So that's something that could be absolutely helpful. So we'll be walking you through that. So to start with, what's going to happen is I'm going to set up the Salesforce and Active Directory integration, and then go on and explain feature after feature. All right. So let's quickly get started. I'm going to start off with the Salesforce logon. So Salesforce, looking up for Salesforce. Do I have it? Got it. Signing in. When I get into my Salesforce account, I'm gonna go ahead and hit setup. What I'll now need to do is I'll now need to create a custom application for this synchronization to work. Getting to the apps portal, scrolling down, I already have an app configured, just so that for the want of time, you can also go on and create a new app, which is going to be pretty much the same. I'll quickly edit this to show you what needs to be filled where. The application name is filled out. The contact email ID right here is pretty important. Most of the time, it's the administrator email ID that you'd want as the contact email ID. Going still down, you can enable the authentication right here, and the callback URL. So this is a very crucial step. You'll need to get this right. It is going to be the URL where your product ADSelfService Plus is hosted. All right. So it's got to be a secure URL. Once that's done, you will have to select one OAuth scope, which is providing access to your data via the web. Since it's going to be a web-based synchronization that we're talking about, one that's going to be happening over the internet. Though Active Directory could be on-premise, the product patches up with the Salesforce online or on the cloud and gets it done. So we'll need to provide access to the data over the web. So that's one role or scope that you'll need to enable. Once it's done, you shouldn't forget to enable this bit, which is requiring a secret for the web, which is going to ensure that the authentication happens without any issue, and the whole transaction or the communication is encrypted end to end. So that is from a security point of view. So we're pretty much done with the first step of creating a custom application on your Salesforce. How do you do it? Get to setup, get to applications, create a new app with these basic info. The important pointers are going to be the callback URL, the authentication scope that you'll have to specify, and enabling the secret for web. So once you're done with this, you've got to go ahead and quickly save it. It usually takes 2 to 10 minutes to the synchronization to get in place. The first step of the handshake is done. The next step is get into ADSelfService Plus. I'm going to log in into ADSelfService Plus, our password self-service management tool, end user. I'm going to log in as the administrator now. For those of you who are new to the product, a quick introduction. ADSelfService Plus lets end user reset their own passwords or change their passwords or update their Active Directory information, basic ones, things like their username, things like their location details, and still further basic contact attributes that you can say go or no go. So I've logged in as the administrator. We are able to see that there is a provision to configure different policies, and these policies are going to form the fundamental for the synchronization we are talking about today. I'm going to go ahead, get to the password sync and single sign-on here. To put things in perspective, we were talking about password synchronization and single sign-on. And if you can see, all major vendors, be it your Slack, your workplace, your online productivity like Office 365, your CRM like Zoho or Salesforce, your Google Apps, all of that available on one platform for single sign-on. And when it comes to password synchronization, we have applications listed right here once more. So all these applications, the critical ones especially, all right, and domain to domain Active Directory password synchronization is also available. If you have any queries on that or implementing a domain to domain Active Directory password sync, please write to me. I'll be sharing my email ID, or you can drop a message on the chat right now. I'll share the relevant documents for that as well. So we're talking about Salesforce password synchronization. So pretty self-explanatory. I get to AD self-service, I get to configuration, get into the password sync mode, say Salesforce, and I have an integration already up. So quickly editing that for you and showing what goes behind. Pretty simple. I can choose both password synchronization and single sign-on. All right, this is Salesforce, so all accounts are going to get a password sync. And since single sign-on is enabled, the end users will be able to access the Salesforce app through an NTLM logon. So all they have to do is just log on to their workstations or their laptops or their desktops, and like magic, they'd be able to get into their Salesforce accounts or any of the other applications pointed without any other authentication required. So this is going to take care of that. The NTLM SSO is going to do that for you. So you have to key in the other basic details: your SAML redirection URL, your password, and your security token, client ID, and client secret. So these are critical parameters. I'm going to show you how to do all this. Okay. First things first, the security token. So for that, I need to get into my Salesforce app, all right, and get into the home tab for the user, getting into my profile. All right, so it's going to be my settings. There you go. So from my personal tab, I'd be able to get a security token. So when I want to access my Salesforce account for API, since it's an API interaction, I'm going to say a reset token, and that's going to give me a instant, email trigger. I should have got it. Yes, there you go. I got my email. So I have my security token. This is my security token for the application that I'm working with, which is the ADSelfService Plus. I got to place that. Then I need the client ID. So getting to the client ID, I'll need to open up the app, create application already created so I can get into it, look for the ID. Just a quick moment. So the configuration is up. So what we'll need is two things. One is the ID. I want to get that up for you. The client ID and the client secret. So I got the client ID, and there you go, the client secret as well. Perfect. So once that's done, I'd be able to update it and then get going with the process. All right, I have a message that says that my screen just froze. Just give me one moment while I get that fixed. All right, I think it looks fine right now. So what I'll need to do is I'll need to go on and get the client ID and the client secret pasted in this specific location. So you'll be able to find that out on your Salesforce application, just like I pointed out right now. All you'll have to do is once that's done, you can get going and say save right here. Once you hit update, you'd be able to see something. So I'm going to go ahead, get to my home screen once more, get to the dashboard, and from here, I'm going to log out as the end user and start off by showing you something. So we've done two things. We've taken all the required details. We've keyed in the configurations at both the places. I'm signing out as my end user. Now that the password policies are already in place, the last step for my process is going to be signing in as the user and checking if the integration is up and running. Okay. So I've got here, I'm going to log in as an end user who's already enrolled with the product. I'm saying login. Perfect. Just a minute. So the logging, the user Adam is right now logging in. Okay, great. So fingers crossed. Let's check if Salesforce has come up right now. Applications, and there you go. So the Salesforce application has now been integrated with the product. So ADSelfService Plus now is integrated with Salesforce. So what does that mean? Two things. One, password synchronization is going to be possible, and number two, you are going to get the ability to have the synchronization and SSO, single sign-on, all done both at once. All right. So this is all you need. So I'm going to go ahead and get to the change password module. These are the other applications for which the configuration is live. I'm going to say change password, and you'd be able to notice something really nice. So the first observation right here is all the password policy requirements are listed right there for you very clearly. You're able to see the list of things that you'll need to satisfy. So let me go ahead and key in a very weak password. Okay, only two conditions are met. All right. So what we'll need to do is we will need to meet all these conditions, and this prompt right here is going to be available not just within the product. Mind me, it's also going to be available on some place that you've never seen before or you would never expect it to be. Let me show you. I'm going to say change password, and here you go. So the same prompt that tells you what sort of password you need to set is also going to be available from your account lockout screen. So how is this going to help you? If you do it the Microsoft way without this bit of feature implemented, you would never know, or your end user would never know what password complexity needs to be met, or it's just going to be a very outright and a very vague error message that tells, sorry, the password did not meet the complex requirement. Try a new password. That's the Microsoft way. It does not point out to you how the password needs to be. But then now, as I key in the new password that's strong, I meet all the requirements. All right. So that way, another simple but helpful way to help end users not raise tickets for password resets or change password requests, because they'll never know what sort of password needs to be set. Instead, you can go ahead and have the Gina to display all that you want. So administrators are saved once more. getting back to what we were talking about having the provision to select between the applications. So now what I've done is I've selected Active Directory and I've selected Office 365. So one interesting observation is I can always uncheck this and just change my Office 365 password. So this way the tool is going to work as an identity manager for me. So it's not necessary that the end user needs to go on and enable a password sync all the time. So this is going to be absolutely optional. So if you think that your end user should not get this option of deactivating Active Directory and just changing Office 365 password or Salesforce password, you can disable that. I'll show you how in a bit. So now it's going to be a synchronized change of password across these applications. So the user gets to say which applications they want to synchronize their passwords for. So quickly keying in the old password, I can say admin at, oh, oops, I just read that out, sorry. So you can go on and key in a new password that is strong enough. All right, so all you have to do is just say change password, and once you say change password, you would be right here, the screen that shows you that your password synchronization for both Active Directory and Salesforce got reset and changed at the same time. So I'm not going ahead and changing it right now. It's just a test setup that I'm working with. So here you go. So change password or reset password, all you got to do is just say change, and your passwords are going to be changed across both these platforms. All right, so if you want the other platforms as well, the ones that I showed you, Office 365, Zoho, apps, also to change their passwords and synchronize at the same time, you can enable it. So now comes the most important questions. All right, we were talking about single sign-on, we were talking about password synchronization. What about password security? Now that I have one common password across all applications, right, since the password synchronization took place, the user changes the password or resets the password, the sync agent is going to be the one that's responsible for all of this to take place in the background. So if you were wondering as to how an on-premise application gets this done, all you need is a sync agent that's working on the background that pulls up the password change, looks out promptly for any change on your Gina or on password changes through the product, and it intimates the server, which in turn sends out password reset tickets or password reset API calls and gets that done for you and incorporated back across all these platforms. All right, Google Apps, Office 365, Salesforce, the one that we just spoke about, and other platforms as well. So you'd necessarily be wondering about the password policies that I was talking about. So we always have this problem, password policies that are extraordinarily strong. You would require a password policy that's got all sorts of things in it, and uppercase, lowercase, you know what. So what if I tell you that the granular password policy, not the policy that we have in Active Directory, the default one, which is not so granular, the only way you can get this granular is through GPOs. Again, that's going to be a complex challenge to manage them, and it's not going to get as granular as what I'm going to show you right now. All right, password policies are going to form the fundamental behind not just password synchronization but also strengthening or hardening your security. All right, I'm going to quickly log in once more as the administrator and walk you through as to what I'm talking about. Logging in back as the administrator, I'm going to get to the configuration tab quickly and show you what password policies are, configuration, and password policy configuration. So here we are. What do we see right here? So I have different password policies, one for the HR department, one for finance, one for the entire organization, few for geographical location, one for vendors and contract employees even. So what I can do is I can have a password policies or as many number of password policies as I want. Okay, I'm going to quickly open up my Active Directory infrastructure and show you all that I have. So I can have different OUs in my organization, and I can have policies for different OUs or for different groups configured, and I can go fine-grained in that way. So different password policies, so different strengths for different people. Not just that, if I want synchronization or cloud applications for a specific set of users, so my sales department is the only department that requires the Salesforce application. So I can very well go on, add a new policy called the sales policy, create or enable all these functionalities for my users, say save policy, and select just the sales OU in my organization. Let me quickly check if I have a sales OU. There you go. Select just the sales OU, and in fact, if I want, or if I do not want the child OUs to inherit the policies, I can select this. In this case, just the sales department. I'm saying okay. I'm saving the policy, and when I get to the advanced configuration right here, I can enable or modify the password options that are available. So it could be your authentications that you'd want to modify for these set of users, or it could be the synchronization that you'd want to work with. So I can get into advanced, say password sync. I can say password sync has to be enabled for applications, or I can say allow users to deselect Active Directory and just do a password change or a password reset for the application in view. If they want to just change their Salesforce or Office 365 passwords, they'd be able to do it from the ADSelfService Plus console. If they'd want to do it for both Active Directory and their applications, you can have this checked off, and they'd be able to perform all that they want, all sorts of password management, all by themselves, self-serve themselves. And the best part right here is when I get to the password policy enforcement, I can choose a policy that I just created. For the sales department, since they handle with all sorts of critical data, I can increase the password policy strength. I can make it 15 characters. I can make them, have longer passwords. Or if I want it to be stronger, it can necessarily need not be long, but also include special characters. It can include, numerics, or the best thing, stopping attacks right at the very beginning. Password attacks, the major ones, could be brute force, could be your keylogger attack, or a dictionary attack. All right, what do attackers do? They quickly look up for online databases that have passwords. So here you go. This is one such website that has all previous password attacks or passwords, commonly used cracking passwords that are available as databases. You can quickly download them, install, put it in a tool like Kane, and perform a LM or an NTLM or a brute force attack right away. That's what attackers do. So what we thought was, why not take a hit, or why not give them a slap on the face? Pretty simple. Download all these you want, administrators. You can download all these and have them chosen as options, and you can implement them as filters. So you can download those dictionaries out there. In fact, we have a consolidated repository of dictionary. You can check our help documentation. It's updated very frequently. All those commonly used passwords, you can choose them right here, upload them, and restrict your users from using any of these passwords in the list. That way you stop brute force, you stop dictionary attacks on the go, just like that. So we kind of reverse engineered it. Yes, that's what we did. And in fact, for the most commonly used passwords like QWERTY, 1234 passwords, the ones that are the least strong, you can stop users from using such passwords. So all of this is going to be additional security to the poor password policy that Microsoft already has. Talking about going one step further and not just working with these basic password entropy parameters, but with parameters that are a lot more intelligent and secure. In fact, if you want to go on and override all of this with a passphrase, which is the most secure one, you could have a passphrase like I love beer, or you can make it even stronger by saying I love cold beer. So this is going to take a lot of time to crack. So passphrases are longer, and in fact, you can make it even stronger with numbers. This is how you do it. So this way it becomes a lot more difficult for them to crack. So you can override all password complexity rules if a passphrase is set as password that's 20 characters long. So all this is going to be possible, and the users can get access on the Agena screen. When I say enable, password policy requirements are going to be shown, and about notifications when they forget their passwords, that's another interesting thing. So if they forget their passwords, which is pretty much the case all the time. They keep forgetting. They can always be notified well in advance because we have a password policy notifier or password expiration notifier right here. So this is going to be OU or group specific. You can say who gets what sort of notifications. So right before their passwords are about to expire, I can send them out account or password expiry notifications. I can send them out all sorts of notifications, SMS, email, push, or in the application is also going to be possible. And I can schedule it for specific days or weekly or daily, and I can alter the message as well. So 1 week before, I'm going to say your password is about to expire, so please change. 3 days before, I'm going to be like, I've reminded already, your password's about to expire, you haven't changed, so please look into it. Despite all reminders, you've not changed at all. 1 day before, and finally, I take control. I say, better change your password or I'll get it done for you. So, end users' passwords can be reset from the admin side as well, from the tool, and they're going to be notified about that. So, about the notifications, here you go. Every user gets notified about their password resets through this, and if the admin needs to be notified on their delivery status or the password reset status, here you go, they can get custom notifications as well. So you can notify the expired users, you can say exclude the users who are not enrolled or disabled, and in fact, if you want to give it a stronger push, you can send notifications to their managers as well to get that done. So I'd not personally do that, not a big fan of that. I'm going to have that unchecked. Yes, done. So you can go on and empower your end users to get the right information right on time. And finally, one last bit that I'd want to cover is directory self-service. So directory self-service is going to be absolutely useful. Users moving between geographic locations. Users would not ideally want to call up the HR, and the HR calls up the admin to perform basic tasks like changing the phone number, changing the location, altering other attributes. So you can have a self-update layout, again password policy based. You can assign policies and say who gets what access or who gets to change their personal attributes, the ones that are listed right here: employee number, first name, last name, if they have any change that's taking place in any of those. Mostly it's going to be telephone number, or it's going to be their extension, mobile number, or address that they'd want to change, and the end users would be getting the provision for a self update for any of these attributes. So what we're working on is we're going one step further, and we are trying to enable or bring all these functionalities across cloud applications. So one window or a single pane where all identities could be managed. That's the goal towards which we are working forward to. So I'm going to go ahead, get into Adam's account and show you what I mean. So for all this to work, we will need security. When I try changing password or resetting, I'll need to be enrolled in the product with security questions. I can have a verification email address also registered so that I get a two-factor authentication, or I instigate, or I have two-factor in place. All right. So we're talking about an end user, Adam, who has access to all these cloud applications, from where he can just go ahead, access the cloud applications through a single sign-on. If NTLM is enabled, that's all they have to do is just log on to their laptops and they're good to go. So we've discussed so far about password synchronization, about end users getting the provision to update their attributes, active directory attributes, all by themselves. So I can say +001 my mobile number right there. Okay, so nobody's not that answer. Yeah, go on, you can go on and have the mobile number or any of the other attributes altered, right? It's pretty simple, and once I say update, it's going to get implemented in Active Directory. Another interesting self-service requirement: group to which users can subscribe to. So if I want to quickly subscribe to one of those resource groups that are out there, probably the printers group, probably the file server group, something like that, common share or folder, I can do all that from here. I can self subscribe, and in fact I can have an approval workflow in place that's going to help me say go or no go, or the administrator say go or no go, and then get that incorporated or give them the permission to the groups. So I've done an overall roundup on password synchronization, password single sign on, self-service, password management, end user updating their own information, subscription to groups, and applications to which they can have access to. There's one more tab called the help desk. From where you can have applications like your service desk plus or your service now to which the product synchronizes, and password reset tickets or any password self-service tickets that are done get forwarded to the help desk tool, to the ITSM tool directly when the integration is in place. All right, so I'm going to quickly log in as the administrator, give you one last recap on what we saw so far. All right, so password policy enforcement is going to make not just your AD password strong, since the passwords are all integrated and synchronized. Any changes that you make right here is going to become one layer of additional security to all your cloud apps as well. So they're going to remain secure as well. A quick overview on the cloud apps and on-prem apps that we support for synchronization. Here you go. We've got the Zoho, Salesforce, G Suite, and in terms of on-prem, we've got quite a few. We're trying to extend the list and we don't want to stop. So with the product, you're going to be able to do self password reset, directory update, single sign-on, and multi-factor authentication. The last bit from a security point of view. Now that there is so much that's coming up from the security front, we've got GDPR where all this needs to be audited. Changes need to be audited regarding identities from an identity governance point of view. So we've got audit reports as well in place. So you'll be able to keep complete track of which user performed what change. Are they enrolled, not enrolled? Did they have their security in place? Have they registered through the product? Are the passwords soon to expire? Do you want to reset their passwords or initiate one such password? Have they self-updated any of those attributes? End to end, the whole thing is tracked and can be scheduled as reports and delivered to you just so that you're on top of your system. All right. Configuration, getting to the configuration bit. In terms of policies, we've discussed all this. Single sign-on. I'll show you one last cool feature and wind up today's session. We've got a few more minutes. So you can go on and have any custom application also configured. So we don't want to restrict you beyond this 100 applications. You can go on and SAML authenticated applications are supported here. So you can pick your category. It could be a HRMS tool. I'm going to say HRMS tool. I can set the flow. It could be an SP flow or an IDP flow. You can set any of those flows, get in the advanced configuration, set the details right here. And if your SAML authentication is placed, all you got to do is key in these basic details, select the policy for which it needs to apply. Again, policies are going to be fundamental in determining who gets what and making the whole password management fine-grained and to the point. All right, so that's pretty much about today's session. Just a few more pointer. One last thing that I'd want you to take note of for the day before I sign off. So just a scenario that I will quickly put together. An organization with 500 employees gets almost 10,500 help desk calls a year, and of these 10,000 calls, 30% are password reset calls. So you end up spending almost $31,000 for a 500 user organization just on password self-service. And now that there are 10 more or 15 more applications that you need to manage, all cloud applications, yes, and your on-prem applications, it's best to have synchronization in place. So just one password, lesser the trouble, and it's also going to be self-service. Thank you so much for having taken the time. This is Jay, your product expert for the day. You can write to me if you have any queries in Active Directory or you have any queries in password management. So we are headed to the United States next month. The starting of next month, we've got our event, our user conference that's being organized in our headquarters at California, Pleasanton. So we look forward to you there. You could go on, come by and get in touch with any of us, any of our product experts. We have one-on-one webinars, seminars happening right there. So that's pretty much it for the day. Thank you so much. I'm available for questions right now. You've been a wonderful audience. If you want the video, you can go on and just write to me right now with your email address, and I'd be able to send out the video.